Tov. Boker Tov, everyone. We'll commence our service. Page 186. Thanks to you, ever-living sovereign, that you have restored my soul to me in mercy. How great is your trust. Now, how often it happens to you that you wake up in the morning and you get something wrong? Like it's almost my daily experience. Like almost, there's no day that I do something in the morning and I say to myself, I should have done it differently, or I should have approached this situation differently, or I should have said
more alarms,
or say different words. It's such a common experience. Now we could say, or I could say, well, that's it, right? Like it doesn't matter for me or for any of us to even think about it. Just it is what it is. And actually, when we put our minds in the morning and we say Modani, and we are grateful for our life, and for our life's experience, and we say that we have God trust, we actually are telling to ourselves that we have the ability to do better, not only tomorrow, in the next hour, in the next 5 minutes. We can immediately set our minds and rectify and try to move forward, knowing that there's always an opportunity to do that. So with that idea that we start our days, telling ourselves that we have credit, that we have the opportunity to live up to be the best version of ourselves. And it's not about the moment that just passed, it's about being present in this moment and aligning the next one. As we enter this space that we create together, this prayerful space, turn our Sidurim to page 188. your tents, Jacob, and even more beautiful, the houses that we build together, houses of the people of Israel. But then I was reading to page 194 for the blessing that helps us dedicate some loving attention to our bodies. I invite you to take a moment and to give some of that attention to your own body, to think of maybe part of your body that needs healing or some special attention. ברוך אתה אדוני, רופא כל בשר, ומפליא לעשות. Blessed are you, Adonai, who is of flesh, working wondrously. Page 196. אלוהי נשמה, שנתת לי טהורי. אלוהי נשמה, Praise are you, Adonai, in whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind. We're on page 198 for Birkot Ashachar, the morning blessings, in which we take the opportunity to acknowledge the little miracles, the miracle of being alive, the miracle of having a functioning body, and the miracle of having identity, of being able to recognize ourselves in this sometimes so confusing world. Page 198, Birkot Shachar.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish day from night.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who opens the eyes of the blind.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who frees the captive.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who lifts up the fallen.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches the earth over the water.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who strengthens our steps.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who clothes the naked.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives strength to the weary.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who removes sleep from the eyes, slumber from the eyelids.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, שעשני בצלם אלוהים. אמן.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשני בת חורין. אמן.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשני ישראל. אמן.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, עוזר ישראל בגבורה.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, פותר ישראל בתפארה. Amen. Page 204, the blessing for the study of Torah. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו, וציוונו לעסוק בדברי תורה. O Adonai, our God, let the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths, and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants, and the descendants of all your people Israel may know you, by studying your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, המלמד תורה לעמו Israel.
We continue with a little Torah study on page 206. These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's parents, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all.
We're on page 212 for the blessing for the Psukei de Simra.
Baruch Shamar v'haya haolam, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Choseh v'Reshit, Baruch Omer v'Oseh, Baruch Chazer u'Mekayem, Baruch Merachem al haaretz, Baruch Merachem al habriot, Baruch Meshalem Zachar Tov Lireach, Baruch Haila'ad Mekayam Lanetzach, Baruch Podeh u'Matzil, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo.
With songs of praise, we extol you and proclaim your sovereignty, for you are the source of life in the universe. One God, life of the universe, praise and glorious ruler, your name is eternal. Melech me'ulad,
בתשבחות, מלך מהולל, בתשבחות, ברוך אתה, אדוני, מלך מהולל, בתשבחות.
Commence the Psukei de Simra in Shabbat with Psalm 92, מזמור שיר ליום השבת.
מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור, מזמור שיר,
215. Happy are those who dwell in your house. לדוד, רוממך לא היה מלך, בך שמך לעולם בהדה.
בכל יום אברכך, בלילה שמך לעולם ועד.
גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, בגדולתו אין חקר.
דור לדור ישבח מעשיך, וגבורותיך יגידו.
על הרכב עבודותיך, בדברי נפלאותיך עשיך.
בזוז נורותיך יאמרו, וגדולתך אספרנה.
בחרת ובחייבהו, בצדקתך יחננו.
חנון ורחום אדוני, ערך אפיים וגדול חסד.
טוב אדוני לכל, ברחם אבל כל מעשיו.
יודוך אדוני כל מעשיך, וחסידיך יברכוך.
כבוד מלכותך יאמרו, בגבורתך ידברו.
להודיע לבני האדם גבורותיו, וכבוד הדל מלכותו.
מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור.
סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים, וזוקף לכל הכפופים.
עיני כל אליך יישברו, ואתה נותן להם את אוכלם בעיתו.
פותח את ידך, ומשביע לכל חי רצון.
צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו, וחסיד בכל מעשיו.
קרוב אדוני לכל קוראיו, לכל אשר יקראו באמת.
רצון ירב יעשה, ושבתם ישמע ויושיעם.
שומר אדוני את כל אוהביו, ואת כל רשעים ישמיד.
תהילת אדוני ידבר פיו, ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו, לעולם ועד.
ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם.
Page 218, Psalm 150. שמעת כל חי, תברך את שמך, אדוני אלוהינו ורוח כל בשר, תפאר ותתרומן שיחך מלכנו תמיד. God of all, God of the first and the last, God of all creatures, Master of all generations, with praise in a multitude of praises, who guides the world with abundant loving kindness and all creatures with mercy. Adonai neither slumbers nor sleeps, but awakens, sleeping, arouses those who slumber, gives speech to the mute. And God loosens the bonds of captives. God supports the fallen and strengthens those who are bent over. You alone we acknowledge. And on page 220. God, in the power of your strength, great in the glory of your name, mighty forever, awesome in amazing deeds, the ruler who sits on a high, unexalted throne. We're on page 222.
שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו, וכתוב רננו צדיקים באדוני, לישרים נבא תהילה, בפי ישרים תתהלל, ובדברי צדיקים תתברך, ולשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש. ומקלות סביבות עמך בית ישראל, ברינה יתפאר שמך מלכנו, בכל דור ודור. ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך הקדוש והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ. כי לך נאה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, שושבחה עליו וזמרה, עוז וממשלה, נצח גדולה וגבורה, תהילה ותפארת, קדושה ומלכות, ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלכי העולמים. יתגדל ויתקדש מרבה, בעלמא דברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי, לך יכול רוב יומך, רוב חייך בית ישראל. בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו תשר
ריחום
לעילה מן כל רחצה
ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמידן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. Rise for Baruch Hu, the blessing that opens the gate of the Shema.
ברכו את אדוני
We see there, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or, uborech choshech, oseh shalom, uborech et hakol. Praise are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, creator of light and darkness, who makes peace and fashions all things. Ameir, laretzu lararim, alei averachamim. Ameir, laretzu lararim, alei averachamim. ובטובו מחדש בכל יום תמיד מעשה בראשית. מה יבואו מעשיך אדוני כולם, בחוכמה עשית מלוא הארץ. קנייניך, קנייניך, כל חדש על ציון תהיל, ונזכה כולנו נראה אורו. יראי לי 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 אהבתנו אדוני אלוהינו, חמלה גדולה ויתרה עמלת עלינו. How deeply you have loved us, Adonai our God, gracing us with surpassing compassion. עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך. Lighten our eyes with your Torah. Focus our minds on your mitzvot. Unite our hearts in love and reverence for your name. Then we will never feel shame, never deserve rebuke, and never stumble. Lead us in peace from the four corners of the earth, and lead us upright to our land. For you, O God, were wonders. You chose us. You truly drew us near to your great name, that we might acknowledge you, declaring you one in love. Praise be you, Adonai, who chooses your people Israel באהבה, in love. Baruch atah Adonai, הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. And on page 232 for the Shema. Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai
on page 234. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. We continue in English, page 236. Adonai said to Moses as follows, "Speak to the Israelite people and instruct them to make for themselves fringes on the corners of their garments throughout the ages. Let them attach a cord of blue to the fringe at each corner. That shall be your fringe. Look at it and recall all the commandments of Adonai and observe them, so that you do not follow your heart and eyes in your lustful urge. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. אמת ויציב בעוף וחביב בן רע, בדבר טוב ויפה. הדבר עשה עלינו לעולם בעת. אמת אלוהי עולם מלכנו, צור יעקב מגן אישנו לדור ודור הוא קיים. ושמו קיים, וכיסון החום, מלכותו באמונתו לעד קיימת. God ever humbles the proud, raises the lowly, frees the captive, redeems the afflicted, helps the oppressed, answering our people when we cry out. Praise to God Most High, blessed is God and deserving of blessing. In great joy, Moshe, Miriam, and all Israel responded to you in song, all of them proclaiming, "Who is like you, O God, mi chamocha, b'elim Adonai." We're on page 240. בעזרת ישראל, עובדנו מהכה, יהודה והיא ישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני, גואל ישראל. We turn our seorim to page 242 for Tfilat Amidah. And as we follow along the millennial words of our prayer, we also try to find the words of renewal emerging from within our hearts. We try to find our tefillah shebalev, the prayer, the words of our hearts. Page 242.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומר חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה מתים אתה רב להושיע, מוריד עטל, מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיה מתים ברחמים רבים, תומך נופלים ברופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. ולמנת אל החיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה המתים.
תקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו, אדיר שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו ומלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
שמרו בני ישראל את השבת, תלמד. אלוהינו אלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו רצונו. בבת תקווה ותלמוד, תמיד עבודת ישראל עמך. God guard my speech from evil and my lips from deception. Before those who slander me, I will hold my tongue, will practice humility. Open my heart to your Torah, that I may pursue your mitzvot. The words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart, acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer. You leratzon imrei fi, ve'egyon livi lefanecha, Adonai, suri ve'goali. We're at the bottom of page 260.
Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imro, Amen.
Adonai, Osea Shalom, blessed are you, Adonai, maker of peace. We will now turn our Siddurim to page 362 in order to commence the Torah service. Please rise as we open the ark.
Hin kamocha v'Elohim Adonai, ve'en kema'asecha, malchutecha malchut kol olamim, u'memshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai oseh mo'iten, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, u'devar Adonai miYerushalayim. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Gadol Adonai iti, u'neromema Shemo yachdav.
Adonai kavod ba'od. Lai, 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 lai. Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Adonai yos le'amo yiten. Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Lai, 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 Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Adonai yos le'amo yiten. Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Was a grandiose ending. Shabbat shalom. Good to
Shabbat
see you,
shalom.
everyone. Is it only my impression or the reverb is a bit over the top? Good. Thank you very much. It wasn't only my impression. So who knows what Torah portion we are reading? Be'ar. Now, this is a very interesting Torah portion and has several topics that are connected to social rules, to how to build a society with an idea, with a Jewish idea of what it would be fairness or equal opportunities for the different citizens, for people in different stages of their lives. We have the idea of Shnat HaShmitah, the year in which what do we do the Shemitah? We have the Jubilee is the Shnat HaYovel, which is after seven, same thing, it's the same concept, just after 7 times. So the Jubilee is the 50th year after 7 cycles of 7 years, in the year in which we release all debts, which is a very complicated concept. Wait a second. We're going to have the kids coming for an aliyah. Come. No, only you. I just want to tell Rachel not to bring the kids now for when I be speaking about 15 minutes. Rachel, not yet. Perfect. So, thank God. We want to do an aliyah with the children from Havaya, but to have them in this conversation talking about Shnat HaShmitah, the way in which I'm doing that right now, wouldn't be a great fit. Not for them, not for you, not for me. So we'll be thoughtful of that. So we have this idea of the Jubilee, the Yovel, after 7 cycles of 7 years in which we let go. We call for freedom in the land. We have the 7 years of Shnat HaShmitah in which we let the land rest and the produce can be taken by those that are in need. But something very interesting happens in this Torah portion. Now, Sinai happened already some time ago. And this struck me for the first time this week when I was reading the weekly Sedra. I'll read it for you and then I'll share with you. Do we have the text? Thank you. So, וידבר אדוני אל משה בהר סיני לאמור. When I spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai. Now, Mount Sinai, it happened a long time ago. We are not there anymore. So all of a sudden, וידבר אדוני אל משה בהר סיני לאמור in Mount Sinai. And then דבר אל בני ישראל, ואמרת אליהם, speak to the Israelite people, and say to them, when you enter the land that I assign to you, the land shall observe a Sabbath for Adonai. Sabbatical year for Adonai. 6 years you might sow your field, and 6 years you might prune your vineyard and gather in the yield. But in the 7th year, the land shall have Shabbat of complete rest. Shabbat of Adonai, you shall not sow your field or prune your vineyard. Now, this is the introduction to the idea of the Shnat HaShmitah. We are in a year of Shemitah. This year is Shnat HaShmitah, in which the land is not supposed to be word in the land of Israel in certain areas. Now, Rashi asks, and a very common expression in Hebrew is Ma inyan shmita le'ar Sinai. When you want to say that something is not related to something, you say, like, what's the business? What's the enterprise of Sinai or the Shemitah to Sinai? Why? Because Sinai is out of context here. Like, we have been reading the Torah portions week after week, and like, all of a sudden, Sinai again. We're in the middle of the desert. We're thinking of Sinai. So this is what Rashi says. Let's read Rashi. And do we have microphones here? Let's make a custom having microphones around. And God spoke to Moses in Be'ar Sinai. And then Rashi asks, what has the matter of the sabbatical year to do with Mount Sinai? Then Rashi says that Scripture felt compelled to expressly state where it was commanded. So Rashi takes it in a different direction. Says, well, we wanted to make sure, even though we were in the middle of the desert, that everybody understood that this is a commandment that comes from Sinai. Well, not all commandments given on Sinai, but this statement is intended to suggest the following comparison. How is it in the case of the law of Shemitah, its general rules, etc., etc.? So let me make a shortcut for you. So Rashi will say, well, all the rules came from Sinai, but I want just to make it very clear and very specifically because we are talking about the land of Israel, so even though we are in the desert, we know it counts. Now, for my entire life, I thought that it was, a very nice way to try to justify some decision-making that, they were having at this point. They say, no, it counts. It feels completely unrelated. We came to this new conclusion today, and we're going to tie it, we're going to connect it, we're going to link it to something that happened before with a foundational event for the Jewish people, and that's how we're going to play this argument. Now, does it make sense? We do it all the time in Jewish tradition. Like it's, Jewish tradition 101. Every time that we want to make sure that something falls completely in place, we say, no, actually, this is related to this event, and this is how it's been happening for 2,000 years, and go and argue with that. That's it. That's the end of the argument. And that's, to some extent, how I thought about this for a very long time. And this week, with a slightly different perspective, something, Hidush, something new came to my mind. Do we have a microphone there? No, just someone who wants to read. Let's distribute microphones. Let's put them in. Give a microphone to Noah, give one to Miriam. Do you want to read, Saki? So don't keep them. So don't keep them with you. Just get rid of them. Perfect. Okay, Miriam, can you read Leviticus 25:14?
When you sell property to your neighbor, fellow Israelite, or buy any from your neighbor, you shall not wrong one another.
Okay. Now, what's this? Which context is this argument coming? Well, they are explaining what you can do with the things that you have from the Shnat HaShemitah, and then they're saying, make sure that you don't sell your neighbor stuff that's actually from the Shemitah, because you are not supposed to sell that stuff. And make sure that you are not buying stuff that belongs to the sabbatical year, because that stuff cannot be sold and cannot be bought. Now, there is this idea of not leading wrongly one another and understanding where things are coming from. The main idea behind not leading astray one another is about understanding where these things are coming from. And Noga, you have a microphone. So you want to read what Rabbi Simcha Bunim says, actually.
Legally, it is only forbidden to defraud one's fellow, but a chassid must go beyond the letter of the law and take care not to delude himself either.
So classic Hasidic interpretation that says not only you're not supposed to rob or defraud or wrong a fellow human being, make sure that you don't wrong yourself. And it struck me very strongly, what's the meaning of this idea of going back to Har Sinai when we talk about Shemitah? Why do we do that? Why is Shemitah? Why is this social behavior? We could say it's agriculture, but it's mainly social behavior connected to Mount Sinai. Crickets. Come on, guys, try. That's where we receive the laws. That's a fact. And if you go one layer deeper, what else happened in Sinai? Golden calf, parallel, but the interesting topic, let's leave it. Well, that's cool. What happened? So let me give you an additional sentence from somewhere else. One of the things that we say in the Seder Pesach is, Arami Oved Avi. My father was a working Aramean, right? Or a worker from an Aramean, actually. Who is, what's the meaning of that? What's the meaning of that link with your father? I think that the idea behind that statement, and of course, this idea of going back to Sinai, and this is what's new to me, is to say this is where I'm coming from. These are the lens through I look at the entire world. These are my Jewish lens. I am incurring, or I make in this behavior, or I'm making this decision because the lens that I use to navigate my path through the world, when I am in the desert, when I'm lost, and when I'm thinking about the land of Israel, are Jewish foundations. It's the Torah. And I link myself back to Torah. I link myself back to this foundational event. And it reminded me of two things. There's a Mishnah that I want to share with you that I think is fabulous in the context of not lying to yourself. There's a concept called cultural humility. Have you heard about that? So I want to do a quick screening, but there's one idea that resonates with me about cultural humility all the time, and it's this idea that when you come to interact with fellow human beings, besides our willingness to define them, which we do all the time, there's no way to navigate your path in the world without making assumptions about who are the people standing in front of you. But there's one thing about also being able to define ourselves and to say, this is where I'm coming from. Now, this is my perspective. I am a third generation of immigrants in Argentina. I'm a rabbi, I'm a Jew. I thought I'm Latino until I came to the United States and I was told I was a white man, whatever. So, kind of, well, but that doesn't belong to me. That belongs to someone else. I define myself as a Jew, as an Israeli, as a Latino, and then, well, no, you are white American male cisgender. Okay. I didn't know. Those are social definitions. They belong to how society might be reading my existence, but that's not how I am reading my existence. And I think that an interesting thing is to ask ourselves, and that's what I like about this concept of cultural humility, where we are coming from. What's defining me? Because when I come to interact with you, and I'm making a huge shortcut here in terms of cultural humility, well, I'll leave you the text for you to, you can go to the next page, but we're not going to read it right now. Just go down. Yeah. So you don't have to, don't read it. Just don't go. Avoid it. So, because then the eyes are going away. So when we come to this idea of cultural humility, is to say, beyond my awareness of who is the other one, which it means cultural competence, to understand cultural backgrounds to understand identities, to be curious about identities, and to ask questions to fellow human beings about what's moving them, what are the values, where they are coming from. There's a foundational component, and it's that so often we have no idea where we are coming from. We express our opinions about a variety of topics. We interact with fellow human beings. We judge fellow human beings on their behaviors. But we don't stop for a moment to say, okay, what's moving my judgment? What's making me think this way or that way? What's annoying me so much about this conversation? At that moment, it's a moment of stop for a moment, step back, and the question is, Mainyan Shmitar Le'ar Sinai. Well, this is where I'm coming from. When I'm making this judgment, when I am ruling this law, these are the lens that I am using to observe and to understand and to contextualize the world. We are so often so busy thinking about where we are and where we want to be next that we forget where we are coming from, and we don't even understand what's moving us. Just one thing about cultural humility. So Myla Khan, she says the term cultural humility was introduced in 1998 as a dynamic and lifelong process focusing on self-reflection and personal critique, acknowledging one's own biases. It recognizes the shifting nature of intersecting identities. Remember, Latino, Argentinian, Latino, Israeli, Jewish. These are my intersections. What are yours? What are the things that make your identity? The child of who you are, where you grew up. Cultural humility, intersecting identities and encourage ongoing curiosity rather than an endpoint, which basically means to say, okay, this is what I am a dull deal, and I don't need newer definitions of myself. Cultural humility involves understanding the complexity of identities, that even in sameness there's difference, and that the clinician, because it was created as a therapeutic technique, will never be fully competent about the evolving and dynamic nature of a patient's experiences. Now, with this idea of self-evaluation and critique, I want to go to the last page, to page 4. I want to share a Mishnah with you that I think is one of the most fabulous Mishnahs in our tradition. You're holding a microphone. It means a lot to me, Robin. Read the Hebrew. No. So, can you read the English? I will stop you. We're going to go once through, and then we'll stop a few times there.
He used to say, do his will as though it were your will, so that he will do your will as though it were his. Set aside your will in the face of his will, so that he may set aside the will of others for the sake of your will. Hillel said,
and here we go to, this is an intro to go to what Hillel said.
Hillel said, do not separate yourself from the community. Do not trust in yourself until the day of your death. Do not judge your fellow man until you have reached his place. Do not say something that cannot be understood, trusting that in the end it will be understood. Say not, when I shall have leisure, I shall study. Perhaps you will not have leisure.
Okay. Any comments about what Hillel said? What? It's a lot. But so let me break it in a few parts. Do not separate yourself from the community. What's the meaning of that? Is Hillel talking about show up to services every morning? Probably not. So what's the point of you do not separate yourself? Probably he was also meaning that. Okay, just for you to know. But anyway, what's the meaning behind do not separate yourself from the community? Correct. So you cannot look at yourself as a phenomenon that's happening in a vacuum, disconnected from the rest of the world. You don't have that privilege or that opportunity. You live in a context. Like when we speak about intersectional identities, the definitions that are coming from you, the definitions that are coming from the outside, you cannot separate yourself from those distinctions, from, to some extent, defining or being aware of your identity and what connects you to the rest of the world. Be aware of what connects you to the rest of the world. Do not separate yourself from the community. Next, do not trust in yourself until the date of your death. That's great. We were talking about that a couple of weeks ago. So the paradigm of the world, which is, believe in yourself, go for it, and then comes here and say, no, do not trust yourself until the day of your death. Like, don't dare to think that you are fine. We have all this, I am enough, I need to trust myself, which is beautiful and very important, okay? Don't get me, what? But you have, we need a microphone for you, Melissa, because otherwise people in Zoom cannot hear you. You need to open your microphone if you want to share. Microphones need to be open also. So Melissa is saying you need to have both. Okay, so good point. But I will take the artistic privilege to ignore the part of trust yourself, and I want to go with Hillel this time. I say, do not trust yourself until the day of your death. Al tamim batzmecha ad yom mutcha. I remember that by heart because it's such a strong statement. Now, the entire idea behind that is the idea of, first, in our classic interpretation of that, Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, until the very last day of your life, you will be dealing with your own humanity. You will be dealing with your own humanity because you are alive, which is a great thing. So don't even think for a moment until the very last moment of your life that you're done, that you have nothing else to learn about this world or nothing else to learn about yourself. The meaning of that trust, exactly that. The meaning of don't trust yourself means don't think you're done. Because when you're done in our tradition, you're dead. That's the meaning of you can do teshuvah until the very last moment before you die. You can shift, you can learn something new, you can grow until you can't grow anymore. The moment that you say I'm done and trust yourself in that context means to say, don't say I am done. Because the moment you say I'm done, the moment you say I have nothing else to learn about the world, or nothing else to learn about myself, and this is the connection, in my opinion, with the beautiful concept behind cultural humility. The moment you say, I know everything I need to know about myself and about the rest of the world, okay, you are socially dead. Now, next, do not judge your fellow man until you have reached his place. Like it's almost one by one. What does it mean? Well, any idea? What? Walk on my shoes, right? And I think that has to do also with defining other people's experience through our own lens. And trying to do hard work to understand where they're coming from and what's happening to them. And it's tough, particularly when all our senses are always judging. And, there's no way to navigate our way in the world without judging, without evaluating our environment, without trying to understand fellow human beings, and also saying, this doesn't work for me. This is not who I am. This is someone else. But if we only do that, we don't get to understand the reality of and other of different entities that are coming from different places. American politics or Israeli politics, in two sentences, right? The obliviousness that we have, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican, a libertarian, or a Democrat. The difficulty that we have to understand other people's experiences and views. Do not say something that cannot be understood. What's the meaning of this one? Any idea about this one? That's a very good point. Why are you saying that? Get the microphone. Thank you for helping with that. Don't think that the other person thinks the same way you do. Put the microphone.
Do not say something that cannot be understood, meaning that you understand it, but maybe not the other person does. And you're assuming that they understand it the same way you do.
Okay. That's one side of the coin. Is there any other side to that coin? And I'm hinting that there is. Empathy.
You have empathy for someone that you might be talking to so that you modulate what you're going to speak about to their needs or what they might be able to understand.
Empathy, that's also a very interesting idea and crosses the entire thing. I want to add one more layer to this.
Oh.
And you want to try?
Well, if the rest of the line says that in the end it will be understood, and it might have to be, in my mind, what I'm thinking is like, don't say something that you have to like force somebody to understand your way of thinking about it or something. I don't know.
Let me read for you the Hebrew.
I tried.
I'll say it in a different way. Stop talking to yourself. What the Mishnah is saying, in my opinion, stop talking to yourself. Why? אל תאמר דבר שאי אפשר לשמוע, שסופו להישמע. Don't think that because you keep saying the same thing, at the end it will make it through, and other people will understand that because you understand it. Don't think that because you keep saying the same thing and you get it, or I get it. Let's talk about raising children, right? but also people that think differently. I will just keep saying the same and say, well, at some point they get it. Because they are intellectually inferior, and at some point they will expand their minds and get it. I trust that if you hit it again and again and again, they'll get it. The Mishnah is saying even more than that. It's saying, don't even say it. Why? Because when you keep preaching to a choir, saying what you are saying the way you have been saying it forever, you are not conversing with the other side. You're just repeating yourself. Don't even try that way. Try something else. And what that something else can be, well, it comes from some, now we have another concept, cultural competence. Understand, or try to understand who is in the other side. What's their ability to hear? You need a microphone, Nitza. Say that with a microphone. Out of respect to those that are sitting in Zoom, that if you want to share some comment in your Zoom, please let us know.
It's
Yes.
on, just put
I
it
think
close to your face.
Yeah, perfect. Nitza, you're doing so great.
I think it's communication, really.
Correct.
Communication. It's very important.
So I'll take that word and I will say communication, but it's not about communicating, it's about conversing, right? It's the difference between what we were saying last week, between a monologue and a dialogue. So if you want to be in a dialogue, you need to understand that there is a different actor, agent in front of you. We're going to move forward, and then it cannot be understood. Something that at the end will be understood. Say not. When I shall have leisure, I shall study. Perhaps you will not have leisure. And it has to do with this idea of the procrastination of the study of Torah, but also has to do with the procrastination of learning about the world, of understanding the world that is surrounding us. At some point, I understand it. At some point, I'll get it. Give me my time. I'll get it at some point. One day I'll understand it. It doesn't work that way. Because that's, once again, אל תאמין בעצמך עד יום מותך. Don't believe in yourself, don't trust yourself until the day you die. Now, I thought that this was like a great Jewish translation. Maybe cultural humility and cultural competence is a translation to Pirkei Avot, chapter 2, Mishnah 4. And all of a sudden, this idea of refrain from cheating not only the other side, but mainly yourself. Refrain from defrauding yourself. Like to defraud ourselves means, in my reading, our unwillingness to recognize who we are and where we are coming from. Where we are coming from? We're coming from Sinai. So it's not only Shemitah connected to our Sinai. Everything we do, we think, we share is, when read through Jewish lens, or should be, connected to Sinai, because that's where we're coming from. And at times we feel quite lost in the reality of our lives, in the reality of our country. It's difficult to navigate our way. And we very quickly try to think about what's next. So we don't know where we are right now. It's confusing. Let's make sure what's next. And I think that this idea of cultural humility and also this idea of going back to Sinai tells us, when you feel a bit lost, instead of only thinking about what's coming next, take a moment and try to clarify where you're coming from. Shabbat Shalom. We'll continue our service with the reading of Torah. We'll have our Havaya children coming up to the Torah soon. I'm going to call them for the maftir.
If you are following along in our Torah books, we will be reading starting in Leviticus chapter 25, verse 1. Chapter 25, verse 1. Yamdu, Esther Basha bat Avraham v'Yocha, Tova Rivka bat Mordechai v'Gita, and Binyamina Temazandra bat Michael Avraham Umalka Leah, Elaine Asa, Tara Filowitz, Melissa Goldman, and chanting Torah will be Dr. Mark Filowitz.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai mevrach leolam va'ed.
Baruch atah mevrach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Amen. V'yedaber Adonai el Moshe b'har Sinai lemor. Daber el b'nei Yisrael v'yamarta alechem ki tavo et haaretz asher ani nochen lachem v'shavta haaretz Shabbat l'Adonai sheshanim tisach shadecha v'sheshanim tizmor karmecha v'aspecha et tevuata Uvashana hashvi Shabbaton Yeh et Shabbat l'Adonai Shatcha lo tizra v'karmecha lo tizmor et sifiach kitzivcha lo tikzor v'el inve nitzirecha lo tivzo Shnat Shabbaton Yeh la'aretz V'hayata Shabbat haaretz lachem v'lachla lecha v'al v'tercha v'lamatecha v'lishkircha v'letoshavach hagarim imach u'v'lechem chacha v'lechaya asher bayartecha tiyek tavuata lachol.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu et temet v'chayei olam nata betochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We're on chapter 25, verse 8. Yamdu, Abraham ben Abraham Visara, the Esther bat Abraham Visara, Owen and Esther Zhao. And chanting Torah will be Nitza Hennig.
Baruch Adonai mevarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol chami ונתן לנו את התורתו, ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן.
וספרת לך 7 שבתות שנים, 7 שנים 7 פעמים, והיו לך ימי 7 שבתות השנים 49 שנה. והעברת שופר תרועה בחודש השביעי, בעשור לחודש, ביום הכיפורים תעבירו שופר בכל ארצכם. וקידשתם את שנת 50 שנה, וקראתם דרור בארץ לכל יושביה, יובל הוא תהיה לכם. ושבתם איש אל אחוזתו, ואיש אל משפחתו תשובו. יובל הוא שנת 50 שנה, תהיה לכם לא תזרעו, ולא תקצרו את צפיחיה, ולא תבצרו את נזריה. כי יובל הוא קודש, תהיה לכם מן השדה, תאכלו את תבואתה. בשנת היובל הזאת תשובו איש אל אחוזתו.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורה פנימית וחיה לנו בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן.
אמן.
Yamdu, Harav Nico ben Yoram, Batya, Vinoga bat Amos, Venira, Rabbi Nico and Noga Sokolovsky, and I will be chanting the third Aliyah, starting with verse 14.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך אדוני מבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני מבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן.
Amen. Veritim karu mimekor lamitecha, o kane miyad amitecha, el tonu ishet achiv, b'mizpah shanim achar hayovel, tikne me'ad amitecha, mispar shnei tuot, yimkor lach, lefi rav hashanim, irbe miknato, לפי מעט השנים תימת מקנתו, כי מספר תבואות ההוא מקור לך, ולא תונום איש את עמיתו, ויראה מאלוהיך, כי אני אדוני אלוהיכם. עשיתם את חוקותי ואת משפטי, תשמרו ועשיתם אותם וישבתם על הארץ לבטח.
ברוך אתה, אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שנתן לנו תורת אמת בחיי עולם, נטע בתוכנו, ברוך אתה, אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. יעמדו כל הילדים, כל הילדת החוויה, מאלף עד תו. All the children from our chavaya.
So, come closer to Torah. I want everyone to be able to see the Torah. And if you are, can you stand up 1 second? Can move 1 second? Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Come to the stairs so you can
Come
come
up
to the stairs so you
stairs.
can closely look at the Torah.
Hi.
Come everyone, come on. Madrichim. You move them in this direction to the end, so you have more space.
And
We're going to
watch
be
your
reading
head.
Torah to Biyachad together. This is the Torah. And
There's room for everyone.
here you can be
Keep going,
here.
keep going. All the way to the end.
Eli, come
We
here.
have so many friends.
Lincoln, here. Perfect. You can, if you stand up here, you will be able to see my friend. Yeah. Can you see the Torah from there? That's great, because you need to make sure that God is really in the right place. Now, we'll talk about your presence here in a moment. We'll first read the Maftir, and then we are going to share a few words of blessing. Baruch Whoa.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך אדוני מבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים, ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני
נותן התורה.
Amen. Kili b'nei Yisrael avadim avdehem, asher hotzeiti otam me'eretz Mitzrayim, ani Adonai Elohechem. Lo tasu lechem elilim, ufasel, umatzeva, lo takimu lachem, be'even, maskid, lo titnu batechem, lehishtachavot aleha, ki ani Adonai Elohechem, et shavtotai tishmeru, umikdashi tira'u ani Adonai.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו.
נותן התורה.
Amen.
And we have a few traditions when we are reading Torah. We take a moment to acknowledge all those that came up to the Torah, in honor of the Torah, our congregation, and of course, Shabbos, and God itself. We say, ושברך אבותינו ואמותינו לעולם יצחק ויעקב שרה רבקה רחל ולאה, הוא יברך את כל העולים ועולות לתורה. He will bless all, or she will bless all those that came up to the Torah. In honor of the Torah, God and our congregation, may they merit from the Holy One blessing of protection, rescue from any trouble or distress, and from any illness, minor or serious. May God send blessing and success in all your endeavors, together with all Israel, and let us say,
Amen.
we also take a moment to acknowledge people that are dealing with illness. In public moments, we also take a moment to acknowledge not only joys, also things that are painful, things that are difficult. We recognize that they are part of life, that difficulty, that illness. As health is part of life, illness is also part of life. And when someone is dealing with illness, we pray for their recovery. We bring them to a public space and we say, you are not alone, we are thinking of you. That's one of the most important ideas behind being community. And so we pray for those that are dealing with illness in their bodies, in their souls. We pray for those dealing with addictions. And we pray for those that are carrying grief. If you have a name that you'd like to share in this morning of Shabbos, please go ahead.
Carlos Newman. Case and Jonathan Case.
We say, may the blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit, and let us say,
Amen.
to all of them, refuah shlema v'achlama meira. Now, it's also customary when you have a special aliyah to do a special misheverach, a special blessing for those that came up to the Torah. And I thought that today we're going to do it slightly differently. Instead of me saying words out of a script that I wrote to myself, or out of my mind, I will say a few of those in a minute. I was thinking about you. I was thinking about a couple of months ago, 9 months ago, when we started the year. One more minute with this one. You can open it right now. Okay. So I was thinking about you. Can you hear me with my microphone?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to use this one for a moment. I was thinking about you 9 months ago. So we were coming from a summer and a previous year that was a very pandemic year, in which you didn't get to go to school very normally. And as a dad, as an educator, and as a rabbi, I was thinking a lot about for you to have some normality in your life, like just to go to school, just to wake up in the morning and go to school. And when we were acknowledging also the beginning of Havaya, our religious school, we were hoping that we just can have a nice and normal year, and we were very lucky. You were here. It took time to get back into routine, but you are here today, and we kept building together. So there's also a blessing to acknowledge in a situation of risk or distress that you have made it through safely. We call it Birkat HaGomel. So I was thinking of that. I was thinking of that fact, the fact that you have made it through safely, that all of you are here today. I wanted to ask you if you have anything that you want to share that you feel grateful for, that you feel that you are particularly blessed in the context of finishing a school year and finishing Havaya year. And I have a microphone.
It's not specifically about the school year, but I'm blessed that my grandpa's still alive.
If you want, whoever wants to share something.
I am really grateful for this community and that everyone in Chavea and Opan welcomed my family and me really well, and I'm super glad for my friends that I made this year.
Thank you, Sharon.
I'm really glad that I got to experience a year with friends that I haven't seen and friends that I haven't seen in a really long while, and just be able to spend this time with them.
Anyone else wants to share? No pressure. If you want to share, you take a microphone and share. Anyone else? Noah. We couldn't make it without you.
I'm not sure, actually.
You're not sure?
I have one thing. Does it
Yes.
have to happen during the pandemic?
Okay.
My grandpa passed away.
So, Noah, we are also grateful sometimes for memories, for the memories that we treasure in our hearts. We acknowledge painful things and people that we miss. We also acknowledge that we are lucky to have experienced our lives with them and that we can carry their memories in our hearts. Anyone else wants to share? Charlie, in the microphone to you.
I'm glad I have a family.
You're grateful for your family? And you are very consistent because in the morning blessings, you always say that you're grateful for your family.
I'm finishing a lot of chapters in my life, this being one of them, and because I'm moving to Israel very soon. Yishar koach, right?
You know that you are allowed to leave us for moving to Israel. That's pretty much the only reason you can use. And
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Forgive you.
I wasn't going to go there.
No, Yoni, go.
And it's good to have a Jewish community around you, a positive one.
Okay, so when I take this microphone back, you speak now. So we hope that you were able to expand your minds during this Havaya year, to expand your perspective, to think a little bit about what your Jewish path is. Now, we don't have one defined path of what Judaism should be, but we are hopeful that you get to develop yours, that you get to experience enough things. Havaya means experience. That you are thirsty for more experiences, that you are thirsty for learning, for more interaction, for more community. We try also to build a community. We are a very small community, very, very powerful. And our power is our greatness. This coming together is our greatness. The fact that we know each other, that we care for each other, that we decide to be present for each other, and that we decide to share as much as we can. So we want to say to you, we want to acknowledge this moment. It's not a big moment of conclusion. What's important in this case is what's coming next. And that in September or August, late August, early September, we are starting Havaya again. And some of you will be coming up to a Torah next year, around April. And some of you will be coming up to a Torah also very, very soon. We don't have a date yet, right? We have a date very soon. And some of you very, very soon. And that we keep carrying Torah together. That you are not only students of Torah, you're going to be teachers of Torah. You're going to be carriers of Torah. Torah doesn't belong in an ark. The Torah belongs in our hands. And in this moment of conclusion of the year, we say, we are grateful for this time that we have achieved in our lives. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. Torah, come with me. It is a tree of life for those who hold fast to it, and those that find a way through Torah, to Torah, very often also find a way for joy, for simcha in their lives. The paths of Torah are peaceful paths, are paths that recognize that different people read Torah in different ways. That different people approach the world with different ideas. We are reminded that דרכיה דרכי נועם בכל נתיבותיה, and all its paths are paths of shalom. We're on page 588. והשב אותה אל לבביך כי אדוני הוא האלוהים והשב אותה אל לבביך כי אדוני הוא האלוהים ונאמן והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו At the end of our service, we take a moment to acknowledge mourners among our community. We acknowledge those during the first 7 days of mourning Shiva. We acknowledge those during the first 30 days of mourning Shloshim. We acknowledge those during the cycle of the first year of mourning. We also take a moment to acknowledge those that have a yahrzeit this week, the anniversary of someone's passing by this time of the year in years past. We have some comment on Facebook, on YouTube.
First year
All the
mourning for
media
Randy
besides
Sostok.
Zoom, I said.
First year mourning for Randy Sostok.
And we also, Noah, you want to remind us the name of your grandfather? Or you can support our fellow mourners while standing, join us with your voices or your hearts for Kaddish Avelim on page 598. Yitkadash, Amen. בריך מלכותה, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהא שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולמי עלמיה. יתברך, ישתבח, יתפאר, ביתרומם, ביתנשא, ויתהדר, ויתעלה, ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה.
בריחו.
לילה מן כל ברכתה ושילתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירם בעלמה, ואמרו
אמן.
יהא שלמה רבה, מן שמיה, וחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. May the memories of your dear ones be always a blessing. יהיה זכרם ברוך. You may be seated. So we are about to conclude our service, not without saying that on the 4th, evening of the 4th, we're going to be celebrating Shabbat. We have a wonderful happening here at TVT. lots of traditional things, lots of untraditional things, or non-traditional things. So we encourage you to join us and to follow the tip that's with the invitations and the information that is in there. Also, on the 5th in the morning, we have also a traditional and non-traditional East Coast service called Cafe, right? So for those that are carrying mourning is a status that we carry for years. So we invite you also in this holiday to evoke the memories of your beloved ones. And on the 11th, we'll have a special Abdallah, farewell Abdallah. Even though I stay for a few more weeks, Josh, don't worry. I'm going to be here. Cindy's here too, right? She was here. We're going to be here on the 25th. We'll take a moment to acknowledge 7 years of love and community, and we'll lift the cup, raise the cup for the continuity and the well-being and the strength of our beloved community TV team. We're on page 625, Adon Olam. And if you feel like that, I will invite you during the last song to make eye contact with someone. If you feel comfortable embracing each other, that works too. We try to make sure that we acknowledge the beauty of community, of being together. אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר בכלל להר עשה וכסות כל עשה מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא עובד והוא יהיה בתקווה להכפילה ולשיר ולתכלל ולעוז ועד מזרח והוא אלי וחי בעלי וצוך אלי והצלה והוא ניסי ומנוס לי ונפוסי ביום אקרא בידו אפקיד רוחי Nice. שם רעידה והיא רוחי הביאתי אדוני לי ולא הירא אדוני עוש לעמיו ייתן אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום שבת שלום שבת שלום ויברך אליו אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא אומר והוא יהיה בתקווה לי Ya rai 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 ya la 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 la